Hello, and welcome to the Global Hemophilia Report, a podcast at the intersection of science and storytelling. Produced by Believe Limited and Bloodstream Media in partnership with our senior scientific advisor, Dr. Donna D, and made possible thanks to our featured advertiser, Sanofi. I'm your host and resident person with hemophilia, Patrick James Lynch. As we've discussed many times on this program before, there has been tremendous progress in hemophilia over the past decade. New therapies have been developed and have reached patients. Entirely new classes of therapies have emerged. We even have gene therapy moving from an aspiration to a reality for at least some people with hemophilia. Scientific discovery continues to reshape what's possible, not only in treatment, but in what people with bleeding disorders are expecting from their lives. Now, it's easy to celebrate a breakthrough. Everybody loves a win. It's much harder to see everything required to make that breakthrough happen in the first place. Innovation is not inevitable. Every advance in hemophilia care depends on thousands of people choosing to ask difficult questions, to mentor young investigators, to participate in clinical trials, review grants, share data, and to continue pursuing better answers for patients. Behind every new therapy are years, often decades, of scientific work carried out by researchers, clinicians, patients, professional societies, foundations, academic institutions, and industry partners, all working toward the same goal. Today, that work continues within a changing research environment. Grant funding has become more uncertain. Universities and academic medical institutions are facing increasing financial pressures, and throughout the research community, an important question is emerging. How do we continue attracting, supporting, and retaining the next generation of investigators? Now, for patients and families, this conversation may feel a little far removed from everyday life, but the strength of today's research community will help shape the treatments available tomorrow. The breakthroughs we'll be talking about 5 and 10 years from now are being built by the decisions, investments, and collaborations taking place today. And that's exactly what today's conversation is all about. Progress in hemophilia is not something we inherit. It's something each generation of researchers is responsible for protecting and advancing. In just a moment, I'll be joined by my colleague and co-host, Dr. Donna D. Together, we'll speak with leaders from across the bleeding disorders community about today's research landscape, the importance of collaboration, and why they remain optimistic about the future of scientific discovery. We'll share that conversation with you right after this.
Sanofi seeks to break barriers for people with hemophilia through groundbreaking science so they can live beyond the limitations of their condition. Learn more about Sanofi's commitment at redefininghemophilia.com.
For decades, progress in hemophilia and broader bleeding disorders has been driven by research, a research ecosystem built on collaboration among scientists, clinicians, professional societies, patient organizations, industry partners, and the patients and families who make discovery possible. Like all areas of biomedical science, that ecosystem continues to evolve. Changes in funding priorities, institutional support, and the broader research environment have introduced new challenges that researchers and organizations are navigating in real time. This conversation explores how the bleeding disorders community continues to sustain scientific progress through collaboration, perseverance, and long-term investment into the future of research. Dr. D. before we hear from our panel with introductions, anything that you'd like to say about why we're covering this topic now?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And I think it is very timely that we're speaking about this now because not only are investigators navigating a new ecosystem, as you say, but I know that a lot of the community is trying to understand where research is at in hemophilia and how it's going to impact the progress that has been so important to our field up until now. So I think this is a really important episode to really deliver the message that the community is alive and thriving and and trying at every moment to meet the challenges of the time and continue to, to deliver progress for the hemophilia community. And of course, that's happening across basic science and clinical science, and with the very important help of our professional societies. And so our guests today, who are about to introduce themselves, actually represent the entire continuum of this research ecosystem. So I want to welcome them all, and I'll ask each one of them to introduce themselves. Jordan, why don't you begin, please?
Hi, thank you, Donna. It's really a pleasure to be here. I hold many hats in the community. I am a physician scientist and a professor of pediatrics and hematology at the University of Michigan. I run a research lab dedicated to understanding the genetics of coagulation disorders and improving therapies. I also see patients in our pediatric coagulation disorders clinic. The other hat I hold is that I'm president of the Hemostasis and Thrombosis Research Society, which we're going to be talking about more, I'm sure, in this discussion.
Thank you. Rebecca.
I'm Rebecca Kruse-Jarres, and I am the professor of medicine and pediatrics at the University of Washington in Seattle. I'm also the executive and medical director of the Washington Center for Bleeding Disorders. I do take care of patients, and I conduct clinical trials and have been involved in pivotal clinical trials that brought new medications to this population.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us today. And last but certainly not least, Lorilyn Jacobson-Tews, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you for having me on the podcast today. So my name is Lorilyn Jacobson-Tews, Lori, and I am the executive director of HTRS, the Hemostasis and Thrombosis Research Society.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Sanofi through Foundation S is a founding visionary contributor along with Sobi to the World Federation of Hemophilia's humanitarian aid program. Since 2014, Sanofi has donated more than 1 billion international units of therapy to the program, supporting over 22,000 people with hemophilia across more than 50 countries. Sanofi's recent trip to Armenia with the WFH, including VP and Head of Global Public Affairs Scott Williams and representatives from Sobi, embodies Sanofi's proud commitment to supporting countries like Armenia in their journey towards patient-centered excellence.
All right, so let's begin with the good news, as it were. Where are you currently seeing the strongest momentum in hemophilia research, and which areas of discovery feel especially promising right now? I'd love to hear from each of you. Maybe we'll go in the same order as our introductions, starting with Jordan.
I mean, that's a really hard question because there are so many different ways that things are going. And a lot of the new clinical therapies we have are because of decades of basic science research. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of that. But without that kind of research, we wouldn't have them. Between gene therapy and non-factor therapies, and even some of the new factor therapies have all come out of that. So it's hard to say that there's any one big promise. I think they're all really good. I don't know if that's copping out, but just in all those areas, right? Improving our therapies, and I guess some of the new maybe things that are going beyond that are some ideas of some oral therapies that expand on these is very exciting. New factors that last longer in the blood, and these are all again coming out of basic science, understanding how these molecules work and changing them around. I think those are two of the things that I find most exciting right now.
Great answer.
Yeah, I think we've seen an explosion in the field, and that is really, really exciting to me. So I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it seems like Patrick, like you introduced, this is hemophilia, but hemophilia is not just hemophilia A and B. So it's really exciting to me that we've become more and more inclusive of women, of other bleeding disorders, of von Willebrand disease, of rare factor deficiencies, of platelet disorders. They all are in the same family, and we've excluded them for so long. So that's really exciting to see so many new therapies that are not just a factor 8 or a factor 9 or for those two diseases, but really for more disease states and for a broader population.
And Lori, what about from your vantage point? Anything that you'd like to add or underscore?
Well, of course, Jordan, Donna, and Rebecca are experts, and not being a scientist, being a layperson myself, but been with the organization for a long time. And when I started with them back with HTRS back in 2007, we had a handful of people that would apply for our awards. Now we have 5 different award programs running simultaneously, and we get 20 to 30 applications for our Mentored Research Award. We have more award applications than we can manage, which I think is a great sign that people wanting to do research in the field is alive and well, and we're trying to do the best that we can to support our professional society.
Well, that's kind of a perfect tee up for where I wanted to go next, which is how are investigators adapting and making their way through the environment that exists today? Lori, you just suggested some of the ways. Maybe you could expand on that answer before we bring in Rebecca and Jordan.
Well, from the HTRS standpoint, we started, like I said, back in 2007 with one award program. It was what we call our Mentored Research Award, and that is $165,000 over 2 years to support either basic or translational or clinical research. And it started heavily in hemophilia, but now we offer both bleeding and thrombotic disorder grants in that range. And we've grown our award programs. So we've got a mid-career research award, a student research award that we're offering now, and as well as seed grants for basic science and translational science research projects by PhDs, which is relatively new for HTRS. We're trying to encourage, more PhD scientists to be involved with our society. I think it was Rebecca that said, we've got a lot of more multidisciplinary approach in HTRS. We're seeing a lot more collaborative research happening. We're seeing research from our APPs, our allied health folks. We actually, for this coming professional meeting that we have coming up, our scientific symposium, we have a couple abstract awardees for awards for that population as well, which is relatively new for us. We're seeing a lot of need. People want to do research and they need the support. And we would like to, as much as possible, our goal is to be a pipeline into other avenues of support that they need for long-term research independence.
Well, it's great to see that you're not only identifying the need, but finding creative and innovative ways to meet that need in your organization. Rebecca, I'll go to you next, and then Jordan. Rebecca, how are you seeing investigators adapt and navigate today's ever-changing waters?
Yeah, something to be said that, 20 years ago, the environment was so different, even maybe 10 years ago, where everybody had this ingrained into them that if you want to do any research, you want to go this NIH or federal funding pathway. And that is just not something that's as abundant anymore. So I cannot stress the importance of societies like the HTRS or ASH or whatever it may be, and being societal grants. And I think there is a really positive notion to that, because this is where the people sit, whether they're clinical, basic science, where you can discuss the environment. Maybe there are some patient foundations where you really get together and say, this is the research we need to do. And you don't do it in a vacuum, but you do it as a group and as a collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan, what would you like to add to this?
Yeah, not a lot. I think they covered it pretty well. Maybe I'll just emphasize the collaborative nature of things, trying to sometimes put 2 different fields together, which is we have a long track record of in the hemophilia space. For example, gene therapy came out of these meetings that the National Hemophilia, now National Bleeding Disorders Foundation, started years ago, of bringing people who did gene therapy together with people who studied coagulation factors, who really, right, we take that for granted now, but that was, my understanding is before my time, but it was not a unified space. And then seeking out different avenues of funding. You really got to beat the bushes and look for a lot. I think part of the increase we see that Lori mentions is because there's a lot more interest, and HTRS has done such a great job of building the portfolio of research, but it's also because people have needed it more. And so we're seeing that turn to foundational support, as Rebecca said, NIH support. You can't completely go on that these days. You have to seek out other avenues. And then the one experience I had over the years was also getting money from donors, which is not an easy thing to do, but certainly something that helps support the field and helps support research.
Certainly. Another area, we've touched on this already, that contributes quite a lot beyond direct research funding too, are professional societies. And we're talking here about collaboration and the dynamic ways that different stakeholders in collaboration can contribute to a shared goal, essentially. What unique role can professional societies play in protecting scientific momentum and strengthening the broader research ecosystem? So again, during times of uncertainty, how do professional societies buttress the research ecosystem? Lori, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think at HTRS, we think of ourselves as a community, a family, really. We are a relatively small society in the scope of things. We have about 900 members from the US, Canada, and throughout the world. But we're really about opportunities for people to grow within this field and in this community. We're about making sure that you have a community that supports you throughout the different stepping stones of your career, from very early as a student, even if you don't know if you're going to go into medicine yet or a research track. We want to make you feel at home in this community, and hopefully encourage you to join, to work, to partner with us and with our members to make an impact on the field. And so we try to do that, student level, trainee level, early career, mid-career, all the way through. And it's really that community that's important. And I mean, one of our big missions at HTRS is to mentor. And I think we see that all across the spectrum, because we have junior faculty that are mentoring trainees, and we have trainees that are mentoring students. So it's not just the people that have reached the pinnacle of their expertise in the field that are considered mentors. I think our members and our community, they take that seriously. And I see that across the board on committees and on planning groups for events that we have, is that everybody is really sincere in their approach to the field, that they want to reach out, that they want to work collaboratively. And I think that is our power, if you will, as a professional society, because this is the brain trust. These are the folks that are making the difference, both clinically and in the laboratory. So this is their home to really network with each other, to mentor each other, to educate across the board, to share findings with each other. And that's what we really see ourselves as.
As you mentioned that mentorship structure and highlighted how it's not just those who have reached the pinnacle who are in the position of mentoring, leadership pipeline came to mind. Yes. For me. It's really a way to develop a pipeline of leaders wherever they may be at their own growth. You have the opportunity to help somebody who's maybe a step behind you.
That's right.
To do yes. that across the model. And, Jordan, you mentioned earlier that organizations like Lori's responding to that demand is reflective that there's interest, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. I know as a patient growing up, hearing that, hemophilia, hematology, benign hematology, maybe doesn't have the same draw or interest as other areas of medicine. Mm-hmm. I wonder, is there any concern that if we don't do an adequate job of responding to the interest at this particular time, that we may lose a generation of potential contributors to the field?
Sure, it's definitely possible. And it's not just, there's the allure of other fields, cancer, right? We'll just name it. That's in our field, many people get trained in both. I was trained in both. And actually, I thought I would be doing cancer. And I don't think we have time to talk about my story, but cancer has that allure, and we're competing against things like that. But not just that, we're also competing against the salaries that these other jobs can have, especially in adult medicine, where you can go out and make a lot more money right away. Whereas if you want to stay on, which people like Rebecca and I have done, stay on and do research and clinical care and a mix of that, there's not always funding for that. And so that's a challenge. Actually, so I want to mention, Lori talked all about the connections between people in the field. Well, Rebecca and I were connected because of a foundation and foundational support 23 years ago or something like that, through the National Hemophilia Foundation, now NBDF. It was in a partnership with pharma. So I guess we haven't mentioned that. We do have to acknowledge that pharma support has been big and it's supporting a lot, not all, but a lot of these programs. And that was the program that brought Rebecca and I together, along with many people in the field. And if you look at many of the leaders in hemostasis and thrombosis, they were a part of this group of this NHF, what we called NHF Clinical Fellowship Award. That brought us together and gave the funding so that people, again, especially on the adult side, could have funding to be able to stay on in the academic center and continue to work and pursue those things. Oh, and let me say one other thing about mentoring. Mentoring is not just a top down. It's also, I don't know if you call it bottom up. Even at my phase, I still look to mentor. So Rebecca actually mentored me. Rebecca didn't mention she was a past president of HTRS. And before I took that on, I called her up and asked her, what do you think? Is this a good idea? How much time will it be? Was it rewarding? What did you think about it? And of course, it was all positive, and that's why I took it. But, at our age, we still look to mentorship.
Sanofi through Foundation S is a founding visionary contributor along with Sobi to the World Federation of Hemophilia's humanitarian aid program. Since 2014, Sanofi has donated more than 1 billion international units of therapy to the program, supporting over 22,000 people with hemophilia across more than 50 countries. Sanofi's recent trip to Armenia with the WFH, including VP and Head of Global Public Affairs Scott Williams and representatives from Sobi, embodies Sanofi's proud commitment to supporting countries like Armenia in their journey towards patient-centered excellence.
Lori was describing how at her organization there's this culture of mentorship, regardless of essentially where you are in your own personal growth. You have something to offer others as well. And so, Rebecca, I wanted to give you a chance to maybe reflect on comments you've heard from Lori and Jordan, also sharing your own perspective on the role of mentorship historically and currently.
So I think one thing that I think is really important, or that Lori already mentioned, and that's the whole idea of community and collaboration. And Lori, you very nicely put it, as a family, because if you're thinking about where we're coming from a training, which Jordan said is oncology and hematology together, and then we refine that to hematology, to benign hematology, to coagulation medicine. We're losing so many people on the way. So what do we have to offer that makes this an attractive field? And I think what we have to offer is that we are taking care of rare diseases. We cannot afford not to work together. And this is what forms this community. And it's really nice. It's, other people need to be promoted on an academic track. You have to have national recognition. This is something we don't have to worry about, because we are nationally recognized, because we have to work together nationally. And professional societies make this possible. They make this possible through education, through programs, through mentorship, through research grants. So there's this continued exchange of ideas, and that makes it so much fun and makes it such a rewarding area. And with that comes automatically mentorship, whether that is just talking to Jordan. I mean, the mentorship goes back and forth because you learn from each other all the time. And I think it's a very giving field. Coagulation medicine is, we're looking out for others.
Dr. D. McKillie, I want to give you a chance too to speak to this. Obviously, you haven't been in the clinic for a few years now, but across your career, you certainly had a fair amount of opportunity to collaborate researchers with professional societies, with patient organizations, with pharma. As Jordan brought up, they're part of the equation too. What do you think your experiences may have to benefit the investigators of today?
I think it's an interesting question because I think to some extent, we can offer our experience to those that are coming, behind us. But, in another way, they're navigating a whole new world that requires, I think, sort of a different approach, a different perspective than maybe we had then. But I think the fundamentals are the same. I think the fundamentals are that we have to collaborate to create enough of a funding environment so that research can thrive. We have to create a community that finds research to be just as important an aspect of what we do every day as the clinical care we provide. We have to collaborate to communicate that view, not only to the rest of the community, but to whichever partners we, like industry partners or funding partners, that we engender and bring along into this mission. And most importantly, we have to convey it to the younger generation of physicians that are coming up. I think that one of the worst things that can happen in our community is that the messages we convey are not encouraging enough to encourage younger trainees, new physicians from entering our field and carrying on this work. And I think all of those principles remain, really important in the collaborative effort. And I think adding to that, though, we now have partners in different ways. And I'm going to talk specifically about the patient community because where we thought about the patient community before as participants, we now need to think of them as partners and collaborators in defining the research we do as important enough to this community to really move forward with their support. And so those partnerships are evolving in a very much more significant and I think productive way. And how those partnerships continue is something very important for us to convey to the next generation as well. That's what I would have to say on that.
As a patient and a patient advocate, I fully align with that patient-centric viewpoint of bringing them in as partners on that deeper level. I also appreciated earlier Rebecca highlighting our movement toward a more inclusive research environment. Women with hemophilia, for example, comes to mind as an area that we're better appreciating now. But to take this from a slightly different angle, I also hear in wanting to design more intentionally and bring patients in earlier and more meaningfully, I hear more time, I hear more cost. And we're talking about an environment that is maybe a little bit unstable at the moment. That's my word. Number one, do we agree with that thesis? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't actually involve more time and cost. So feel free to challenge that. But if it does, how do we balance that tension with, again, an environment that's not so predictable?
So, you're asking, does it make sense to involve the patient up front? And does that add costs? I would say, no, it reduces costs because then in the end, we have meaningful outcomes. We have worked ourselves to a point where, bleeding rates are not the only outcome anymore. We're not just making people with hemophilia bleed less, but we want them to have normal lives. So it behooves us to go to the person who we're doing the research for in the end and ask them, what is meaningful to you? What life do you want to live and how can we get there together? So I think it's really important to start there and then go back, and then Jordan can ask his zebrafish. I'm just kidding. But then he can design the basic science that is needed, but have in mind, where do we want to go in the end? I think that's a really important thing.
I something that just occurred to me while in this discussion is, in some facets of life, it's just better to have one person who can do two things. So, for example, I got an MD PhD degree at something that's been promoted by the NIH because it's felt like having a physician's mind and a researcher's mind together in one, as opposed to an MD who does clinical, takes care of patients, and a basic scientist trying to work together. It's not the same. In my lab, there's been a revolution in the last 5 or 10 years in the field of bioinformatics, of working with sequencing data. This high-level next-generation sequencing data, and we didn't know how to do it. And for a while, we were trying to work with other people who knew that but didn't understand our work. And then finally, people in the lab learned it together. And so what I'm getting at is that maybe one solution to this, and there are a few of them in the field, we know who some of them are, of patients who are physicians as well and or researchers, that they're ones who could really help to drive this because they can do both. They can sit in the middle. It's not, this is a little bit of a tangent to what you were originally saying, but I think that's something that maybe we should recognize and promote. We see these people, but get them involved, the people who really have a personal stake. Just like if you've been a patient, if you've ever been a patient, you, as a physician, at least when I've been a patient, I feel like it makes me a better doctor for what I learn, from that. So I don't know, that's just something I just came up with. I think maybe those are the people who can help to really push this aspect of the field.
I think, Patrick, if what I'm gathering from what our guests are saying, I don't know that we would view it as more costly. It's just a different way of doing what we're doing, and because it actually wastes less time in doing research that's not relevant, in many ways it doesn't waste whatever funding we have. It doesn't waste physician time. It doesn't waste research participant time. And I think in the end that is less costly, but also maybe more attractive to funders. And so I think that doing it the best way and the most productive way, I think goes beyond, issues of costs, and may actually be cost saving with time.
That's a very fair point of view. You mentioned something earlier too, Dr. DiMichele, about the message that we're communicating to upcoming investigators and how maybe we need to examine that message and tweak it. And I'm thinking about that in parallel to, Jordan, your comment about maybe patient physicians are part of the vanguard of how patient centricity throughout trial design, implementation, commercialization, maybe they're really kind of at the heart of it. So I think the question I'm driving toward is, what message do we want to be communicating to, whether it's investigators or potential patient physician, patient researchers? I know more patients and caregivers involved in data collection and research than I did 10 years ago. I don't know if that's just exposure to my network or if there's more patients and caregivers meaningfully involved in data collection. I don't know. But how do we message in a way that encourages more participation in the field and not less?
I'd like Lori to start that discussion, because I think that in the messaging world, there's almost, no better place than the professional society and being able to convey that message, or certainly amplify that message to many more people than individual investigators can influence on their own. So, Lori, how do we convey a very positive message to those early career investigators? And also, I don't want to forget, like, the mid-career investigators. That can be a tough time too. And so how do we convey the message of hope and purpose, and also, the excitement of the field?
That's a big question. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, I know.
I think for us, and I think this is part of what we have, what we like to call small but mighty administrative team. and we all work remotely, but we've been with the organization a long time, a lot of us. And so it's really fun for us to see, and Jordan is one of these cases right here. I mean, Jordan applied for a Mentored Research Award back in the day, and we've got to see, we've watched his career develop and watched him get other funding, expand his research, become involved on the national level, and become a leader in the field. And this has happened with so many of our early stage investigators that we have funded, it's so gratifying to us as an administrative team to be able to meet these folks, help them in their career, and then watch it blossom. And I think a lot of that is because of, again, back to the community. If you feel like you have a safe space professionally, we like to call HTRS a professional home. If you know that you have access to people who are sincerely there to help you broaden your career, to collaborate with you, to help you see things from a different perspective, that can only strengthen you as a professional, I think, and broaden your ideas about what you want to do in the profession and what kind of impact you'd like to have. And I think as far as messaging, 4 years ago we realized as a board, talking at one of our retreats, that we needed to reach out even earlier. We have a very successful training workshop that we offer twice a year, and that's been going on now for at least 15 years. And we feel that is really impactful. And we've seen so many people that maybe thought they would have an interest in benign hematology come to the workshop and then just get enamored and sit down and talk with a mentor and think, this is it, this is my place, which is the ultimate result, I think, of those workshops. But we thought a couple of years ago that we really needed to even reach out earlier. We really needed to start to attract people when they are in medical school, when they are undergraduates, even if they're undergraduates that have a slight interest in science, want to just see what it's about. And so we started a workshop called the Search Workshop, and that is for undergraduates, medical school students, PhD track students, postdocs, to get together at the very start of their career. And in the 4 years that we've been doing it, it is one of my favorite events, because I think at first we thought, what are we going to do? We're going to get 30 undergraduate students together and nobody's going to want to talk, and they're going to be very shy. That could not have been farther from the truth. These are dynamic, young, intelligent, fabulous young people. And they come with questions. They sit down with the experts. And what I love about our faculty at these events is that Donna and Rebecca and Jordan are all at the top of their field. I mean, they're internationally known. But these kids don't really know that. So they may look at your credential, wow, this person has a lot of, alphabet after their name. But I'm going to sit down and talk to Jordan today. I'm going to sit and have lunch with him, and I'm going to ask him questions about his zebrafish and about what he told us in the first lecture, and have a conversation one-to-one. And I see so many young people, they just light up just to get that amazing chance to build a one-on-one relationship with someone who has dedicated their career to the field, and their excitement about it comes through. And we have a lot of board members that started with us when they were early career investigators, are now sitting on our board and doing the same thing, reaching out to these students and saying, we are so glad you're here. We're going to tell you a little bit about what we do, and we hope that it's really exciting to you. And I think anytime you sit down with people that are passionate and excited about what they do, you can't help but be, that's just, it's fascinating to us on the team, to hear from our members, why they love the field, why they're so, proud of their colleagues, proud to be a part of the network and part of the community, and how it has helped them. And that's what we're here to do as a professional society, is to make it so that it's not just a place that you go and you clock in and clock out, although no one in this field does that, I can assure you. But but that, wow, you really have an opportunity to become part of something and to contribute. And not only just to, to be on planning committees, to help with education, to help with mentorship, to reach out to these young students that may be, lost and not quite sure where they want to go in their career. Why not get them excited about what you're doing and the questions that you're looking at? It's really gratifying. And I've heard so many times from our professionals too, that they just love coming to participate in those events because it gives them energy to hear the questions. It gives them hope from these really bright young minds. And we love to have them become part of our society. And we offer, free trainee, free student membership. Just, come and join us. Come and listen to the conversation. Come to the events. Even if you don't say a thing, soak it up. And a lot of times they end up saying a lot of things because our professionals make it comfortable and easy to do that.
When you used a word in there, home, and I think as a patient, and Dr. G. McKelly's heard me talk about this in the past. I talk about and I think about patient identity and how important it is for a patient to have an identity in their life where they're not defined by a condition, but that it is included as a part of their identity so that they manage it appropriately. Mm-hmm. What I don't spend as much time thinking about, but this conversation is surfacing for me, obviously investigators, researchers, scientists are people too, and they have different parts to themselves. And we all want to feel like we have a home, especially with work we're doing that takes the majority of our time, our passion, makes us vulnerable. We want to feel supported and safe. And you said we try to create a home, and I thought that really matters. And to the prompt about those mid-career individuals, I can imagine for some of them in particular, really finding a home in the middle of a career or finding a place that feels like it can adequately support their next steps. You must be such a lighthouse for certain folks. So I just wanted to reflect that.
And in fact, actually, I'm going to have our other guests maybe comment on that as well. But I think that there's a fundamental question that when an environment is changing or unstable, particularly with respect to research, how do people kind of keep going? How do they maintain hope? And they maintain hope as a community. The idea of a professional home, I think, to get the support that they need, not only the financial support, but the career support that they need, I think is pretty important. And I want to give a shout out to all our other professional societies because, it used to be that the professional societies used to be a place where, you paid your dues and you complained about how much they were and you, and then, you went to the meetings and they were educational and, and you heard, stuff in your field and, you met colleagues, etc. Well, I think professional societies are taking on a very important role now that they never did before. And that is that they are creating homes for people who, as you just heard, people who aren't professionals yet. And then, all the way along to people who are senior in their field. And they're creating a place of commonality of purpose. They're creating a place that provide organizational opportunities, as has been spoken to, but also funding opportunities and support opportunities. And I want to give a shout out to everyone, all the organizations within our community, the National Bleeding Disorders Foundation that is still doing offering opportunities for fellowship training and mid-career awards, and of course to the Foundation for Women and Girls that is providing early career awards specifically at the interface of women's health, both in bleeding disorders and blood disorders. And of course, broader organizations like the American Society of Hematology that has, diverted they're kind of a rich organization, but $19 million towards supporting research, bridge grants or supplemental funding to researchers that are, whose funding is otherwise delayed or canceled, etc. And then I just want to bring up the International Society of Thrombosis and Hemostasis, where, that's now taken to an international level. And so we're very lucky in our field to really have these multiple professional homes. We've never needed them more than now. And I think they create a place of hope and community for the physicians and researchers. And we hope that can be sort of that hope can cascade down to the people who are, the intended beneficiaries of not only the care, but the research that we do.
Well, speaking of that hope and its cascading across people, we have about 10 minutes left, and I'd like to give everyone a chance to speak to what gives you hope from a research perspective as you think ahead 3-5 years. What drives your hope and optimism? But additionally, Jordan and Rebecca in particular, if there's anything that you'd like to respond to in what either Lori or Donna just said, please go ahead and do that as well. Rebecca, we'll start with you.
Yeah, to me, hope on any level, if that's the patient level, if that's the young investigator, young physician, mid-career, it doesn't matter. Hope is being heard. So if you're in an environment and you feel like you're being heard, then that develops hope. If I come to you as a patient and I say, what are the outcomes that would be meaningful to you? And you have the feeling that's being incorporated, that is then meaningful research that is happening for you, I think. And it's the same thing for young investigators, for mid-career investigators, for senior investigators. So it's keeping this, I'm being heard, my values are being incorporated. That's what's giving me hope. And I think the societies we have right now, the environment we have through the societies, are supporting research that is looking at these things. I feel like I'm being heard. I'm being heard, but not just by the societies, but by our pharmaceutical partners. They're asking me, what are the outcome points we should be looking for? So that gives me hope that we're developing the right therapies for the future.
Yeah, I guess what gives me hope is looking at the past, looking at where we've come, right? And seeing the things that we've done and hoping to do more for the future. That was what got me excited about research, was seeing the kinds of things that we can do or the things that were going on and wanting to do those same things myself. So knowing that there's the ability to improve care. When I was, it was about 25 years ago now, I was at the end of medical school, and actually I was fortunate enough to meet Kathy High, came to give a talk and talked about how gene therapy for hemophilia would be so easy because all you had to do was get to 1% factor level and you would cure a severe hemophilia patient, because 1%, right, huge difference from zero. And look where we've come now, right? Look at that. And so just to see the ability to go from that to where we are today, and then try to envision or predict what's going to be or hope what is going to be in store for us in the future. That's what keeps me going.
What drives your hope?
I think, again, just talking about the young folks, they really are inspirational to me. And I think we had one student who came to our search workshop 2 years ago that we had several emails in the beginning. Even though she was accepted to come, she wasn't sure if she should come, wasn't sure she would fit in, kept asking questions about, how should she prepare. She was very nervous about it. She did come and ended up having such a great time with everyone that she wrote HTRS a rap song afterwards, all about how we've, how she's so excited to be part of the community, how we've set her on her career path. It was just really heartwarming to see. And I think, from having her check in at the registration desk, and you could tell still feeling like, am I supposed to be here? I don't know if these are my people, to having everybody say, we'd love to be your people. Here's what we're about. This is what excites us and what lights us up and what we're discovering. And if you'd like to be a part of that, we'd love to have you be a part of that. And seeing her really become integrated into the workshop, not afraid to ask questions, sitting and talking with smaller groups of people and putting herself out there was pretty amazing. And that gives me hope that that if we can be an inclusive, welcoming, challenging environment that people, that we make it so that people want to be a part of it if they want to. If they are interested, please come on, sit down at our table. That's hopeful, because I think we're stronger together, and we're stronger with young people that are coming with fresh ideas. We like to make them part of our society, and to know that you don't have to reach a certain pinnacle or a certain age to have a thought or to want to collaborate. We want you here. If you want to be here, you're part of the team.
Lori, thank you. And thank you, Rebecca and Jordan, as well. Dr. D. McKelly, would you like to put any final thoughts together as we bring this conversation to a close? No pressure.
No, I liked your last question, and I think that much like the arc of moral justice is long, I think the arc of research is long. I think that that's a perspective that I think we need to keep. There's been ups and downs before, but we hang on together, during the times that look, less flush, less certain, and we get to the better times together. And I think that's been the history of research. But I'm also struck by the fact that, they're the pragmatics of this, right, that I'm talking about. But then there are ideas and progress. And those ideas and that progress really doesn't stop, and isn't stopped by any kind of, let's say, a funding environment change or an ideological change. It just keeps going. And I think that's what really needs to give us hope, is that, progress is inexorable. We, in banding together and supporting one another, will be around as it, continues. And I think that's what gives me hope.
Well, you all give me hope. Those answers give me hope. Hearing the amount of collaboration, innovative thinking, and the deep commitment that exists, that gives me hope. So thank you for that commitment. Thank you for the work you do. And thank you for joining Dr. D. McKelly and I in the Global Hemophilia Report. Lori, Jordan, and Rebecca, we couldn't do this without you. So thank you.
You bet. You bet. And, continue. I hope you all continue your great work out there because you're, Patrick's right. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Global Hemophilia Report. One of my biggest takeaways from today's conversation is that scientific progress has never been the result of one researcher, one institution, or one organization working alone. It has always depended on collaboration, on mentorship, and on people who are willing to invest not only in the next discovery, but in the next generation of investigators. The research environment may continue to evolve, but one thing became very clear in today's discussion. The commitment to improving the lives of people with hemophilia remains as strong as ever. Researchers continue asking difficult questions. Professional societies continue creating opportunities for collaboration and mentorship. Patient organizations continue ensuring that the voices of people with lived experience help shape the future of research. And industry partners continue translating scientific discovery into new therapeutic possibilities. If there's one message that I hope you take away from today's conversation, it's this. Progress in hemophilia doesn't happen by accident. It's built by people, strengthened through partnership, and carried forward by each generation that chooses to leave the field better than they found it. I'd like to thank Lori, Rebecca, and Jordan for joining Donna and me for such a thoughtful and timely discussion. My thanks as well to Dr. Donna D. McKelly for once again serving as both co-host and scientific advisor to the Global Hemophilia Report. If you found today's conversation valuable, I'd encourage you to share it with a friend, family member, or colleague, or with anyone else who cares about the future of bleeding disorders research. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Global Hemophilia Report so new episodes are delivered to you the moment they go live. Finally, thank you to the team at Believe Limited and Bloodstream Media for making this program possible, and thank you once again to our featured advertiser, Sanofi. Remember, the next breakthrough always has a backstory. Thanks for joining us as we explored part of that story today. I'm Patrick James Lynch. We'll see you next time on the Global Hemophilia Report.
Sanofi is committed to bringing new perspectives and bold innovations to the global hemophilia community. Learn more about how Sanofi is committed to breaking barriers and supporting the community at redefininghemophilia.com.